Living life, every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray.
Hey, good afternoon. We are. This is an exciting one for me, I think, because it's a reflection of a real estate market, what happened over last year, right? Our data is always kind of trailing in behind. So obviously, this month in January, we're going to bring you what happened in 2021. So joined by Brenna with Land Title. Now, Land Title is gracious enough to have some very smart people that pull this data together, put it all together so that I can nerd out and kind of try to make sense of all of it. So, Brenna, go ahead and introduce yourself for those that don't know, and for anybody that's on my Facebook feed, they probably should know you already.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Brenna Harper with Land Title Guarantee Company. And we just do this update every month to kind of get a handle on the crazy market and also weed through some of the noise from social media or from what your neighbor says and make it a little bit more approachable if you are entering the real estate market. So that's kind of our goal. And to dissect and nerd out, as Matt said, on some of the numbers that we get.
Yeah, and if you're watching, make sure you drop a comment in, let us know that you're here. And of course, if you've got specific questions, you want to know something about the market, just you can drop that into the chat, and we'll do our best to get into that information. So first, I do have to say a sad day for me. As a giant Bills fan. I've been a Bills fan for a very long time. It was a rough game last night, just with the way that it ended. But as a football fan, what an exciting last couple of minutes for the playoffs.
Yeah, we had some people we knew that were actually at the game. And I know how loud our house was with just a few neighborhood friends. So I can't even imagine being at the game. But you'd have to think, right, that they need to look at those overtime rules. That's kind of the sweeping remarks that I've heard from honestly both sides or anyone watching the game. So it'll be interesting, but that might be the best game we see all year.
Yeah, it did not go how I wanted it to go, but you can't be disappointed. Like it wasn't a controversial call or play or something that happened that ended it. Right, you can't give 13 seconds to Patrick Mahomes. Apparently,
yeah, apparently not.
Needs is a field goal, So, but yeah, let's talk about our real estate market. Now, I want to share some things. Now, normally you're providing all the data and information, but I want to share real quick my partnership with Place. Has now partnered with Goldman Sachs. And one of the things that's allowed us to have is access to some really, really amazing data. So want to share some high level things. Now, this is nationwide. This isn't going to be Colorado or Denver specific. Average home price went up 18%. And that's huge. That is a massive amount. Now, think about mortgage insurance for a second, Brenna. If you bought your house in December of 2020, by the end of December 2021, an 18% increase, usually you have to have 80% equity to qualify for not having mortgage insurance, right? That's an additive onto your payment. So you could have put down maybe the minimal 3.5%, maybe 5% down. And as of today, you could call your lender and work out how you could get out of mortgage insurance, whether that's a refinance or it just falls off. And the historical average, for context, is 4%.
Yeah.
So we saw 4.5 years of appreciation in the last year across the country.
Yeah, and I think we'll touch on this a few other times maybe throughout our chat, but I think there's some fear of people when they see appreciation like this, that it's the top of the market. But we've been seeing double-digit appreciation in Colorado for several years. So even if it went back down to the national average, historical average of that 4%, yes, you're paying a premium right now, but you're also dealing with really, really low interest rates. So it is still a great time to get into the market, and have that equity and take advantage of the great real estate market that Denver and Colorado on the whole has. So I know it can be really intimidating when you see these numbers like, oh man, we can't sustain it. And we'll show you a few reasons why we probably will continue this trend or close to it for at least a couple more years. And doesn't mean the bottom will fall out after that, but maybe just to slow down a little bit. But it's the appreciation is incredible. It can be scary entering the market, but if you can find a way in, the opportunity to get that equity in a short amount of time is pretty incredible.
Yeah, without a doubt. And for those who were waiting for the market to crash or to save up some more so they had a bigger down payment to make the home purchase a little more palatable. We've said this multiple times, just doesn't quite pan out here as what we looked at. So percentage of home ownership. Now, I don't know if Land Title has, it's not in the slide deck that we normally have, and I'm sure that you guys could put it together. The average across the U.S. for home ownership is there about 65%, and about 31% of all buyers are first-time home buyers. And that number, I think, has dropped a little bit. I think in Denver and in Colorado, the numbers that I've heard is it's about 51% for homeowners and 49% are renters. So we've got a little bit more higher percentage of rental population. And Brenna, I don't know if you have any information about that or any different stats from the folks that you've contacted or been in connection with.
Because we get our data from RE Colorado, which is where most realtors, real estate agents post their listings and solds. For data like this, you have to look at the census, which is a little bit more inaccurate because it's a voluntary information give. So it's kind of, the data is only as good as it's entered kind of thing. So we don't track that specifically on a month-to-month basis, but I'm sure I could find out. But it does make sense to me on some level that Denver is a little bit higher on their rental population. I think with downtown Denver, kind of that lifestyle, people are more inclined to rent with some of those other amenities. Also the price of housing, I think, I can't remember the exact number, but we have gone from we've taken a big slide backwards in affordability as far as where we are across the nation. So there's some people that just aren't sure how to get in the market or are scared away from getting in the market. So that rental number being higher makes a lot of sense to me, but I don't have exact numbers.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised to see that home ownership percentage, just from what I've been told anecdotally around what we see here in Colorado. One interesting slide here that we were able to find is that about a third of all mortgages right now could stand to go through a refinance process, right? Because of where interest rates are at and where their interest rate is. That's a big percentage. Now, interest rates are kind of climbing right now, is what we're hearing. They kind of climb and drop back down. They climb, they drop back down. So reach out with questions about specifically as it relates to refinancing. I've heard this from a lot of real estate agents and from a lot of the general public about, well, nobody's selling their home. It's just nobody's putting their home on the market. They're all scared of, well, hey, I could sell it, but I don't know where I would go. There's nothing on the market. We're estimating, and it looks like it's going to be about 6.1 million homes sold last year.
Yeah.
Across the nation. That's a huge number. You and I have talked about this, so folks that are watching may be in the know. It's not that homes are not coming on the market. Homes are absolutely coming on the market. They're just, especially here in Denver, being devoured so quickly.
Absolutely. As we look across the different metrics that we track, Since 2019, not a lot has been normal, because before that, the Denver real estate market was cyclical, but it was very predictable as far as seasonality and kind of what happened when. Since 2020, things have kind of gone off the rails a little bit, and they're starting to normalize a little bit. But the one metric that has stayed consistent, or very, very close to consistent, since like 2018 is those new homes on the market. So if we look at the graphs, there's the same number, very, very close to the same number of homes coming on this December as last December, October to October. It's just that we have such a deficit in inventory that it's just being gobbled up, and the demand is way out of swing with the supply. And we would need an influx of people to sell their homes to catch up, or for new builds to be built, which is a whole nother topic and an issue. But it's not that people aren't selling their homes. It's just that they're being, like Matt said, gobbled up very quickly.
Yeah. So one of the things that we've seen happening is the big increase with people buying second homes, and I think the short-term rental market has allowed that to grow. Right, the Airbnbs, the Verbos, and it looks like the Fed and the government are looking to squash that a little bit. They're dramatically changing the interest rates of what it takes to be able to purchase a second home, to where before, a second home you could get purchased for just slightly higher interest rates than a primary, not nearly as high as what you see for an investment property.
Yeah.
So it made it more affordable, more advantageous to do that. And that seems to be changing. So that's supposed to be kind of coming down the pike starting April 1st. Kind of the rumor is I'm hearing potentially lenders are going to start doing that sooner, before the April 1st. Now here's my disclaimer that April 1st is kind of what I've heard. I'm not a mortgage lender. Absolutely connect with the mortgage professional around the details on that. But if it is April 1st and you've been thinking about a second home, maybe right now is the time to pull the trigger before those rates go up.
Yeah, and that might be interesting too, because they're making it a little bit more difficult for those investors to get in the market, but they're not changing for those primary residents. So potentially less competition with some of the investors. I know Denver kind of had an influx of investors with short-term rentals and just the market in general, and then some other outside forces that were buying up in bulk. So that might change the playing field a little bit. I don't anticipate that it's going to soften the market too much as far as entering the market. But yeah, if you're coming at it from an investment side and you've been on the fence, I would talk to someone quickly and get that rate locked in.
Yeah. Yeah, without a doubt. So here's another one that I found interesting, and an interesting strategy around this. But the percentage of 18 to 34-year-olds, some millennials, right, and the Gen Z living at home with their parents is near an all-time high, right? So it looks like it dipped a little bit. So these may be folks with college degrees. They're choosing to stay at home. Maybe they can't afford something, or they're just not aware that they could afford something. Wow. As a parent, what a great opportunity potentially to buy that second home, or to buy that home for your 18 to 34-year-old, to help them kind of get out of the nest. If you can swing it and make things work. There's so many different opportunities, I think, for this group that a lot of them are scared of taking that leap to get into home ownership or to rent. And their fears, some of them are going to be real. Some of them are going to be valid. Absolutely. Some of them, there's a way to make it work. Yeah. Right. And I know when I was in college, the prices were low, the interest rates were lower, not as low as they are right now, but they were low for the time. I said, well, it just makes sense to try, probably buy. So then I found some roommates and was just doing what I was doing before, which was renting from somebody else, and had roommates. Now I have roommates and they're renting from me, and it just made it work, right? I was actually able to live cheaper owning a house than I was renting another place, right?
Yeah, I did something very similar. So it'll be interesting. This is our biggest potential buying group moving into 2022 is the millennials.
Yeah, it's interesting, and not to get into a debate as to whether it's right or wrong, if it makes sense. There's consistently conversations about eliminating student loan debt so that these folks can buy a home.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the problem we may run into, unintended consequence, right? We are already so short of inventory. Can we imagine what kind of impact it would have if the 18 to 34-year-olds or those with student loan debt that weren't able to purchase just had their debts wiped away, and now all of a sudden they're able to purchase homes? The flood of potential buyers that creates in an inventory level that's already out of balance, unintended consequences, right? Just secondary impacts around those things.
Yeah, it's just solves one problem and creates another. So I'm glad I'm not the one making those decisions.
Yeah, nothing happens in a vacuum, right? Absolutely. So there's always unintended consequences, like I said, for anything that happens. Like, hey, we did this to create this, but this happened over here. Wow.
Yeah.
And on the inventory deal, we had the fires that ripped through Boulder County in a hurry and destroyed somewhere around 1,000 homes. Now I do know that some people lost their lives, and it's heartbreaking with what's happened. It'll be interesting to see as we look through the long lens, what's going to happen with our inventory market around those folks needing to eventually rebuild or buy, or do they move? And what happens with the new construction, the laborers that they have, which is already short, and kind of the long-term impact. I mean, we're going to probably feel this as a whole, outside of those directly impacted, because those directly impacted, you're going to feel that for the rest of your life. It may impact, right, future generations, but as a community, as a society, we're going to feel this in our real estate market as well, for probably several years to come.
Yeah, and I've talked to a few people about, how long it takes for insurance claims to go through and different things like that. And there will be some people that rent and wait for their homes to be rebuilt or for a home to be rebuilt. But there's also going to be a lot of people that take that money and absorb into the surrounding areas, whether that be Boulder, Westminster, Broomfield, which are already short on inventory. So they, a lot of people said, oh, well, they're not going to be buying for 2 years or whatever. And it may take that long for those homes to be rebuilt. But what people are saying is that some of those people that have lost their homes are going to be entering the market sooner than later, just not in obviously that exact area. And like you said, some people might choose to just completely move. But it doesn't help the inventory situation, and obviously that's the least of our worries with this. But it'll just be interesting to see how long it takes to get things rebuilt.
Yeah, right. The lower level impact as far as priority, right? The housing crisis, right? There's some real things that have happened, and the homes that over the next couple of years that were lost that may have come on the market. They say about 5%, homes sell every year. So we figure 5% of that 1,000. And those are the homes kind of over the course of those years that just won't be able to be put onto the market right in there. Again, be interesting to see. Obviously, we want to be here to help those that are in need as it comes to the Marshall Fire. So those are the ones that I wanted to share anyway from ours. There were a whole lot of other slides that are interesting, but again, I've already taken up a lot more time going through mine. I want to turn it over to the Brenna show because she's always more interesting, and it's more hyper local, so it's more relevant to us here in the Denver area. So
let me know. I shared my screen, so let me know when you can see it.
yep.
Okay, cool. So just want to touch on this from a high level. This is our year-end review. So this is 2021 on the whole. So as Matt mentioned, up, and this is for detached homes, up almost 19% year over year. So that average sold price at 683. So this is different when we go through December. If I talk about average sold price or days on market, any of that, that's just for December. This is the entire year averages and what we're seeing. So just so you kind of understand what that looks like, but almost 19% appreciation from average sold price year over year is pretty incredible. Detached homes, we're moving 50% faster. So 12 days on market was our average. So and we can go through this on the December slides, but typically we're in like the 20s, 30s, maybe even 40s as far as time days on market. Obviously this summer we got incredibly low. And honestly, all of 2021 was very, very fast. So this is average. I would imagine our median days on market, or like that middle number for days on market for all of 2021, was somewhere around 5 days, which I think kind of tells the story better as far as how fast the market was moving. But again, very, very fast, even compared to 2020, which we thought was kind of a nutty year. Attached homes were at 429, which is up 14% year over year. So still pretty incredible. And then they were 19 days. So typically attached homes, they just move a little bit slower. But again, historical average, that's very quick. And we are down 34.5% year over year. So that much faster than we were the previous year. As far as 2021 goes, let me make this bigger. So percent of homes that sold for over asking price, detached homes, was 81%. Which is up 17, almost 18% year over year. And I would actually love to see this number back from 2019. So if you've been listening to us for a while, 2019 is kind of our marker for that last normal year. So sometimes when comparing it to 2020, it doesn't quite paint the whole picture. But regardless of that, 81% of homes going for over at or over asking price is just pretty incredible, and just speaks to how strong of a seller's market this is and how out of whack our supply and demand are. Attached, really close there at 78% for that. And then percent of homes under contract in 7 days or less. So this is what we consider our flash sale. So 72%, which is up 17.8% year over year, in attached homes at 63%. So I don't think any of this is really super groundbreaking. Some of the numbers are still pretty incredible, even looking at them all of the time. But we are headed into another fast and furious year. And I don't see that changing a whole lot. So we'll jump into Greater Metro stats. So let's see here. I'm going to just skip that. So this is our market snapshot. So this is detached homes and attached homes. So this is our big bird's eye view that we look at: green being active, blue being pending or under contract, and red being sold. So this is just a really good graph to look. And this one actually does show 2019. So you can kind of see how things are different and how things stayed the same. But obviously the big thing that's different from 2019 to 2020 and then 2021 especially is where that green line is on the graph, and that's our active inventory. And I feel like a broken record, but the active inventory being so low is really driving what's happening in our market. And it's incredibly, incredibly low, and we just saw it tank. And that's normal in some capacities for it to have that cyclical nature. But again, like I talked about before, you can see this kind of right in the middle there of COVID in 2020. Typically April, May, June, we get that nice increase in active inventory to hold us through, and then it comes back down. And we just didn't have that happening because truly For a few months there, people weren't putting their homes on the market in 2020 because they didn't want people in their house. They didn't know where they were going to go. The world was uncertain. And that just added to the problem that we already had. So current month, attached and detached for all of Greater Metro Denver was only 1,500 homes. In 2019, that was close to, let's say, 6,000 in December. And if we were going to be at a balanced market, so equal opportunity for sellers and buyers, we would be close to 20,000 homes. So you can see just how far down, how depleted we are in those active listings.
Yeah, the green line being below the red and blue, and I say this pretty much every month, that's not a good thing for the pace of the market. And if 1,500 homes on the market, we break that down by county. Like Jefferson County had 238 homes that were active on the market, and that's all price points across the whole county. That's inventory levels are going to probably change. I believe they're going to start growing. But I mean, they could double, they could triple. We're still at this rate going to be in a seller's market, even if they triple or quadruple, right?
Yeah. So to Matt's point, what he was saying, if you look in the bottom left-hand corner, we have it broken down by county. So Adams County at 275, Jefferson County, to Matt's point, 238. Denver's a little bit higher at 426. Their attached market is a little bit different. We've talked about that before. The attached market in Denver was the slowest to come back from COVID, with the kind of secondary spike that we had, and some other things with just the kind of the atmosphere of downtown. Currently, we saw another little decrease, but overall, Denver is still in most price points a seller's market. It's just kind of that perspective thing that we're talking about. So, when you're looking at Jefferson County at 238, 426 seems like a lot. It's not. It's just more. So, even within those specific counties, it can be a really different story. So that's why we always encourage you that, yes, Greater Metro Denver is great to look at, and even nationally, like we were talking about before. But if you want to know really, truly what's happening when you're getting ready to sell or as you're entering the market as a buyer, the more local that you can get, the better idea you'll have of what you're walking into and what that specific market looks like.
Yeah, if I were to look within a 2-3 mile radius of my house right now, which is a detached house in Adams County, right, I may find 5, maybe 3 active homes. Maybe it's a little bit more than that. Taking a look in a half-mile radius for attached properties only in a Denver neighborhood earlier today, there were 15. Right. So a difference, right? A subsect of that market for the attached like condos, especially as we're in that downtown area. There's going to be a little bit more options. So if you've been striking out on the detached homes, let's start taking a look at some attached properties in Denver that have been around a little bit. Maybe that's the piece that we get you into. I don't know, right? For the millennials who are buying a house for your dog, that may not solve that problem. But if you're looking to get in home ownership and you don't need a yard, maybe something to consider.
Yeah, and you can look at this here. This is attached single family. So Denver took another little bit of a hit as far as down 45.5% month over month and down 72% month over month or year over year for those active listings in December. So again, it's just really interesting to see how the different sub pockets react differently to what's going on in the world. But yes, if you're striking out on the detached single family, historically attached single family is a little bit more affordable. Unfortunately, if you're looking for affordability, attached homes and condos in downtown Denver is probably not your best bet because there's a lot of luxury living there. But just to the point of, even if it's with financing or where you're looking, there might be other options that you're not considering. Just because you look in one place or one type of loan or one type of home, and it doesn't seem to work, you can pivot just a little bit, and it's not a totally different story, but it may be different enough to help you be able to play ball.
Yeah, and it may take moving out a little bit further than the radius that you want to be, looking in, a town that maybe you hadn't considered before. Here in the Denver metro area, right? If you're going east or north, or pretty far south, you might be able to find kind of that affordability that you're looking for. Usually, it's kind of further east you go, less expensive it can become, right? People want to stay close to the mountains and do everything that the Colorado lifestyle has to offer.
Yes. And again, not to belabor the point, so just so you can see it kind of on a different, in a different way, we talk about a balanced market, or, needing 20,000 homes. So this is showing that we have 0.3 months, or just 10 or 11 days of active inventory, detached and attached. So what that means, if all the buyers stayed in the market that are currently there, and all of the homes that are currently on the market were listed, it would take less than 2 weeks for that to be completely absorbed. So for this to be balanced, National Association of Realtors says nationwide it'd be about 6 months. So you can see even in 2019, we were only at 2.5 at our best. In Denver, we think it's closer to 4 months, just kind of depending on that exact pocket. But obviously, we need more than just a couple weeks of inventory, but you can see just how low we're getting. And I remember having these conversations in March, April, May, saying, oh my gosh, how can it get any lower? And I'm just going to stop saying that because December. So.
Yeah, so we're going to start saying it absolutely can get lower. It may go lower. COVID's really thrown all the rules out the window. So we'll see what 2022 brings. I believe, now mark this, right, and come back to the video, tell me months from now that I'm wrong. I believe we're going to see inventory levels start to climb as we get, March, April, May, right? Are they going to climb as high as we need them to? I don't think so. I don't think we're going to see a flood of the market. I chatted with one investor earlier today who said, yep, I'm waiting for the market to crash before I buy anything. I just don't believe that the data says we're going to crash. Interest rates going up may slow down the buyer demand, and buyer demand is going to change buyer confidence. And people buy when they're confident. If they're not confident in the market, that slows things down. So, that rate may change without necessarily more homes coming on the market. The good news is, home ownership is still a really good investment, kind of regardless of when you make that purchase, as long as you can afford to keep it.
And it might just kind of push where the demand is, because right now, with our average price point being in that high 6, low 7s, that's $500,000 to $700,000 bracket is incredibly competitive, and depending on how much interest rates swing, that messes with buying power for people. So it could mean just a little bit of a shift in where we're seeing the most competition, but I don't think it's going to halt buying completely. And just to touch back, we did a big year-to-date overview on the days in MLS. Wanted to show you just historically. So 17 days, yes, up a little bit from the midsummer months. But if you look historically, 24 and 40, which if we go back even further is still historically low. So it's just very, very fast is the bottom line there.
Yep. It's running on a treadmill, cranked all the way to 11.
Well, and I think that's part of the reason that it's really important to understand what's happening in the market, at least on some level, before you enter it. Because if you don't know what's going on, or you only think you know based on a news headline or Facebook or something, and then you get into the market, it's like you're missing things left and right. That can be really overwhelming. It can be really scary. So having the information so you at least know what to expect, what the strategy needs to be, and what you're walking into That way you're not figuring it out and missing out if you're a buyer on the first couple homes because you don't understand what your strategy needs to be, or as a seller missing the mark and leaving money on the table. So I think too much information can be a bad thing, but if you can just get a little bit of information so you at least feel confident as to what to expect, I know that definitely helps me feel better and more prepared and less stressed.
Yeah, and I look at what's going on in the market and the pace that we're in, and unfortunately, there's far too many real estate agents who are ill-equipped to handle the market that we're in. Right? They don't have the knowledge, the interpretation of what's going on, and the tools to be able to help kind of serve and take care of their people. So the folks that are watching, right? I'd love a call and opportunity. I know that not everybody that I know is going to call me up and say, "Hey, Matt, you're my real estate agent." And there are a lot of great agents that we have here in Colorado. But absolutely, it's essential that you do your due diligence on your real estate agent and making sure that they're equipped and prepared to be able to navigate you successfully through this real estate market, because it has its own unique challenges on both sides, right?
Yep.
Even as a seller, there's a lot of things that are being done that may potentially put sellers at risk of a lawsuit later, or they're unnecessarily leaving money on the table because, again, they're just not quite equipped. The agent's not quite equipped between negotiation, between tools and strategies to help, navigate successfully and make sure that the best possible outcome is happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so this is average sold price for detached single family. So for December, we stayed, actually went up, which is a little bit unusual for the time of year, right at that 700,000 mark. But with that, I've even seen Facebook posts about it, like, how can anyone buy if this is the average price point? Well, keep in mind, this is the average, but also if you take a look to the left, Adams County, which is where we live, is at 533. Which is still high. It's still high, but that's considerably lower than 700,000. So that's where I'm saying, yes, it's great to look at those snapshot numbers. And if you're looking at overall appreciation across Metro Denver and you're seeing 6-figure appreciation, that's awesome. But if it scares you that that's the average price point, just take a little bit of a closer look, and there are opportunities to get in the market for less than the average. So that's where breaking it down into the county or even property type really help to narrow in on what you're looking for.
Well, and a $2, $3, $5 million property is going to skew that average.
Yep.
A little bit. So understanding the difference between average and then median being the one that's right there in the middle. So half the people are above it, half the people are below it. It's a different metric to kind of get you an indication as to, what's happening right now in that area, right?
Well, and I think the other good thing about this graph, as we're talking about the top of the market, well, every year has a top of the market. As you can see, it goes like this. But even though, in 2019, it was a little bit flatter, and then obviously 2021, we're like climbing 14ers over here. But you're still having year-over-year appreciation. So if you're selling in December instead of June and you're like, I missed out on the peak of the season, well, year-over-year, you're still appreciating. So this graph is going to continue to go up. Now, if we come back down a little bit more into the foothills instead of the 14ers, that's fine. That's still good appreciation. But not 100%, but more likely than not, our average sold price, our average appreciation, regardless of some waves along the way, is continue to have the trajectory of going upwards. So it's still going to be the good investment, and you're still going to have that equity in your home.
Yeah, it still makes sense. There's still great opportunity. Even if you miss the absolute peak, but you still made a heck of a profit, it's not the worst thing in the world, right?
Right.
Real estate investing, right, or investing in general, you won't grow broke making a profit.
Touche.
Words of wisdom, put it on a fortune cookie from Matt Harper.
Yes. Okay, this is the last one I want to go over because I think it just is a good one for understanding what to expect in the market as you enter. So percent sold to list price, it's, again, detached single family. So this is what percentage of the price that you listed it at did you actually sell it for? So historically, typically we see right under 100%. And then during our peak selling seasons, we might reach close to 100%. Obviously, 2021 had a mind of its own and we peaked up to almost 106%. That's not sustainable. Congratulations to you if you sold during that time. That's great. I'm sure you got a lot of money, but I don't think anyone wants to sustain that. We want it to come back down. Unfortunately, this plateaued a little bit sooner than I think we wanted it to, just because the active inventory dropped and there's just such a high demand. So we're down from 106% to 101.8%, but we're still considerably higher than where we'd like to be. Now, unfortunately, I don't think this is going any lower. I think it's going to start to go up again as we come out of kind of our holiday fog, as the weather starts to get nicer, or maybe not because we're having spring snows. But I don't think that this is going to go down, maybe a little bit, but I think it's going to be another incredibly competitive year. So why this is important: if you're a buyer and you go in saying, cool, I see this beautiful home, it's turnkey, ready to go, first weekend listing, let's do full list price. You're kind of behind the eight ball there in a lot of scenarios. Now, that's not saying that you can't get something bought for list price or under, because again, this is an average, but just trying to set that expectation so you know your strategy and you're not missing out. The other thing for sellers is understanding where this is at. You're not in the same market as you were in May and June. You're getting some of that, the comps, and so the average appreciation has gone up. But as far as how aggressive you can be with your pricing or what you should expect, just keep this in mind so you can make a good decision and price your home within the market and get the most out of your listing, out of your home as possible. So this is when we'll want to take keep an eye on, just as far as competitiveness. And then, it's pretty incredible that up to $3 million, we're seeing over 100% in sold to list price. That's not normal. But to Matt's point, those $1, $2, $3 million homes, as we get into the ultra luxury, those can also, especially with price point, they can skew the data. And since 2020, we've seen an influx in that ultra luxury, because if people are stuck in their homes, they don't want to be in New York City. They want to be in Vail, where they have space, or they want to be in Boulder, wherever that is. So there's a lot of money coming into Colorado, which is good for our economy. It's just not great for the rest of us trying to compete all the time.
Yeah, not looking to compete with New York City money on $3 to $5 million properties.
No,
that's fine. I don't want to live in Boulder anyway. That's why I'm choosing to live where I live, right? So, 2021 was an interesting market, unlike one that I've seen in my career. I know a lot of other real estate agents that would echo the same sentiment. Brenna, I think you're right. I think we're going to see February, March, April. We're going to start seeing that average climb up closer to 106% of list price, because there's 1,500 homes to choose from in the Denver metro area.
Yeah, and obviously I'm not an expert on interest rates or anything mortgage, but listening to some of the economists as we do our year review stuff, there was already a slight hike, and they're talking about another one probably in like the June area. And even if prices were to decrease, which it does not look like they're going to do, if interest rates increase, that just depletes your buying power. Doesn't mean you can't buy it. Doesn't mean it's not still a historic rate. But if there is an opportunity before we get fully geared up, and I'll tell you, even since the first of the year, just these couple of weeks, I've seen the traffic already start to increase. So if you've been on the fence about it, if you're looking to get into the market, it's not going to get any quieter than it is now as a buyer. And again, as a seller, it's obviously still a great time because there's just not very much on the market. So you're still going to get great prices for your home. So I don't think that there's not a bad time to sell your home in Colorado. It just might be slightly better for the buyers right now before we get into the full speed of the race.
Well, and if it's better for the buyers, right, it's a little better for the sellers on some level too, right, when it comes to interest rates, affordability. So obviously we'll see what happens for January numbers as we review here in a couple of weeks what happens there. So I think we're headed for a similar year to what we saw in 2021. And then we'll start to see the impact that interest rates have. I think, again, mark this one down. I believe interest rates are going to start to slow down the buyer demand a little bit. We'll start seeing fewer second homes being purchased, which will, I believe, impact that as well. So we're going to see just exactly what happens. What I know is whatever the market does, we're going to come up with tools and study the market to make sure we position our clients to be in the best position to win the game.
Well said.
So cool. Any final thoughts, Brenna?
No, I don't think so. I think, January is always kind of an interesting for me, one to report on, because I feel like it's a tale of kind of two cities or two halves, with the first part of January being really slow and then the second part of January speeding up. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out and what those numbers look like, and how fast things get up and going this year. But even just from, seeing the orders come in, talking to different agents and people, it's already starting to speed up. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Yep. We're going to be ready to go. So again, thanks to Land Title for putting the data together, sending that on over. Thank you to the economists that my company Place is partnered with to be able to put a lot of that data together on a national level. And we'll be back here in a couple of weeks as we review January's numbers for our Denver Metro real estate market. So again, Brenna, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'll see you guys next month.